Hi. Failed again on the Zoom front, haven't managed to record it. So instead, we'll have a quick rundown of what was going on this Tuesday evening. I hope that you're managing to do the prep in the binder, because that will really help you dig into the text for yourselves. And that's one of the big aims, really, of what we're doing, is that we would grow in confidence to read the Bible for ourselves and to really get a handle on what Mark is trying to teach us. Not really what I'm trying to teach you, but as I try and work out what Mark is saying, I want you to be trying to work out that as well. And so we grow in our love and knowledge of Jesus as we get a grasp on what Mark is saying. Now, in last week's passage, we saw that Mark had gathered these particular passages, these episodes together in order to teach us of Jesus, God's King, in action. We saw the kingdom very much in vibrant technicolor awesomeness. It was a big wow kind of crowd of episodes. And Mark was really big on his immediately. Jesus was absolutely in control, doing his thing, and we were amazed. And it kind of compounded. And as then we hit our collection of episodes this week that Mark has gathered together, it can feel like a bit of a shock that we've hit a roadblock, because it seems that there is significant opposition to the king. God's king is being opposed by the scribes, the Pharisees, the religious leaders of the time. I don't know whether you noticed that as you were reading through the passage. There's actually a growing tension. So we see it first off in chapter 2, verse 6. And the scribes are sitting there as they watch Jesus forgive this man his sins, the paralytic, and also heal him. And they're questioning in their hearts. And at that point, they might think, well, this is a kind of justifiable kind of puzzlement, a question that is right to be questioned, that because only God can forgive sins. And they're questioning it in their hearts. But as we go through these episodes, there's a growing tension to the extent that by the time we get to 3 verse 6, they are, if you just have a look at it, they held counsel with the Herodians and were working out how to destroy him. So they've gone from a questioning heart to murderous intent. And as we're going through the episodes, we're seeing those hearts go from simply questioning to actually, as Jesus notices in 3 verse 5, hardness of heart. They have a hardness of heart. Now, as we're going through it, we're thinking, well, this is quite significant opposition. These are the most powerful guys at the time, and they are in direct opposition to Jesus. And it raises the question of, well, what is going to happen? Possibly we're feeling a bit disappointed, a bit nervous that maybe the kingdom is not going to happen, that God's king is somehow going to be stopped. But we've got to notice 2 kind of concurrent threads going on here. We've got the opposition, but we also have Jesus' response. And all the way through, he is doing something different. He is challenging their challenge to him. He responds to their challenge. And as he's doing it, he is setting up, establishing that he is doing something radically, unsettlingly different. It's not that he's just going to fight them in their own way. He's not battling them on their ground. He's actually taking it onto a whole nother level. I was using the illustration on Tuesday night of when I came to America, to Illinois. I had what I thought was a winter coat. Quite proud of it, really loved it. Turns out it's a fall coat, and it's entirely useless in the winter. It is 2 very different items of clothing, as I discovered when I, on advice, went out and bought one of those super duper, keep warm, any level of snow kind of coat, the kind of coat we don't really have in England. And as I noticed the difference between these 2 coats, I thought, well, this new winter coat is of an entirely different breed of coat. We don't even have this sort of coat in England. And in a similar, I know it's a bit of a lame analogy, but in a similar way, what the Pharisees are doing, the way that they're fighting, what they're up to, is just knocked out of the water by what Jesus is doing. He takes it onto a whole nother level. It's a different landscape, a different plane, as God's king establishes his kingdom in new, radical ways. So as you're going through the passages, the episodes, be noticing, you've got the opposition, but also be noticing Jesus' response. Notice how he sets up a new thing. Let me just show that to you in the slightly puzzling 18 through to 22. They're quite tricky illustrations that he's talking about. So if you notice, the Pharisees are questioning, why do Jesus' disciples not fast? And as they're questioning that, they're really saying, how come your crowd don't have to do our system of righteousness? How can they be exempt from this kind of means of piety that's been established? And it's a fair question in some ways, because this has been the way all the way through the Old Testament, all the way through Bible history, the Jewish sort of the way it's been set up. Fasting is just a part of what it is to follow God. And Jesus has come and said, well, he's saying, I am the bridegroom. The bridegroom is here. It's not appropriate to fast when the bridegroom is here. And the whole symbolism of bridegroom, when we bring in the Bible imagery for that, is massively God-focused. All throughout the Bible, every time there's a wedding, or like a picture of a wedding, it's God who's the bridegroom and God's people who are the bride. And so when Jesus says the bridegroom is with them, the bridegroom is here right now, he's saying God is here. And so this system cracks. It's no longer appropriate. It's no longer the way. And he builds on that by talking about the wineskins. So the wineskins, the old wineskins, were fine and good for that wine. They were useful. They did the job. The covenants, the way that the system worked before Jesus came, that is good and right. But now there's new wine. And do you notice in verse 22, he says, but new wine is for fresh wineskins. And that's the thing. The new wine is Jesus. Therefore, with Jesus comes a whole new thing. New wineskins. The old wineskins are useless, and you can't patch a new cloth, new wineskin onto an old one. It just doesn't work. In the same way, Jesus is saying it's not about making what's going on already better, not about slotting into that, but about a whole new thing. We'll see it more in the next chapter as he establishes the disciples as the leading 12. And we have a similar kind of idea in verses 23 to 27 as he talks about the Sabbath. He says in 27, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath. And what he's saying is that it's not that Jesus, God's King, is going to slot into the Sabbath kind of way. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. He supersedes that system, that kind of system of righteousness, because with Jesus, it's going to happen in a whole new, different way. Righteousness, as we know, will come about through his death, through his saving death on that cross. Now, before we kind of totally dismiss the Pharisees and think, well, we would never be like that, we just need to remember that apart from the grace of God, we would very much be in their camp. We would not be responding to Jesus in the right way. We would be murderous as well. So before we kind of just vilify them entirely, we need to just remember that. It's really helpful to see the opposition, to see how opposition works, and to see the development actually, where questioning is not a bad thing, but then as the hearts harden, and you can see it. I wonder at what point you think their hearts begin to harden, at what point it goes from a slightly puzzled face to really angry, looking to accuse, as it says in chapter 3, verse 2. I'm going to do another video now that helps us just to dig in a bit deeper and to apply this to our own lives, but I can only do 10 minutes at a time on YouTube apparently. Okay, so I'll do another one now.